Saying I'm sorry doesn't often work, and there are times where it can actually make the situation worse. So if you are feeling the pain of distance in some of your most important relationships, then in this video, I'm going to teach you how you can go about creating close, honest, and intimate connections once again. Now, first, I want to take a look at why saying I'm sorry is really not up to the task of reconciliation. First and foremost, it can be used reactively and defensively, despite your best intentions. Now, I'm sure you've heard, and maybe you've been the person at times, but you've heard somebody say, I'm sorry, in a way that doesn't actually work toward repair, restoration. It's said just kind of in this empty, reactive way. It remains superficial. And the problem with this, where it gets even worse, is that sometimes then people will go on to say, well, I said I'm sorry, as if that actually did anything. So you can see where this just leads to a breakdown in communication. Someone fires off a quick, I'm sorry, without really taking the time to think about it or feel into that. And then they go on to entrench their position all the more and say, well, I said I'm sorry. It just doesn't work. Now, I'm going to suggest that one of the reasons why it doesn't work is that when someone says, I'm sorry, they're expressing something. And if they genuinely feel sorry when they say that, well, that's one thing, but very rarely is that the case. Now, we can look to the word sorry for a clue. And etymologically, the word has this root that means something like painful, something like suffering, something grievous. And I'll suggest to you that if you are not feeling pained, if you are not suffering in a way, if you're not feeling grievous when you say, I'm sorry, you are lying. Now, that might be a tough pill to swallow, but I do mean it. If you are not feeling sorry when you say, I'm sorry, you are misrepresenting your internal experience to another person. Now, I'm willing to bet you aren't doing that intentionally. This is not a malicious lie or misrepresentation, but it is one that really ought to be corrected if you value this relationship. Now, I'm going to go in depth into how you can work to repair and reconcile these relationships, and you'll see that it does actually take quite a bit of work. Now, it's up to you to determine whether these relationships of yours are worth the work of reconciliation. My experience is that this is difficult work, but ultimately it is some of the most beautiful and rewarding work of our lives. So let's start first things first. There is distance that you experience in a valuable relationship in your life. And I'm going to encourage you to explore how you feel with respect to the fact that there is distance that you wish weren't there. Now, if this is a relationship that matters, a relationship that was once close, loving, warm, trusting, honest, open, whatever, and it now isn't, you have suffered a loss. And I'm willing to bet that if you clear a little space to actually fill up with the feeling of that loss, you may genuinely experience something like that sorry state that might occasion you to say, I'm sorry. Now, feeling that, it's likely going to be coming from a place where you feel a kind of ache in your chest, a pressure. You may feel a kind of heaviness, a slowness, a sinking feeling. These are generally what we experience when we feel sorry, when we feel the sadness at having lost a close, honest, intimate relationship with somebody that we care about. That is pretty close to the feeling of sadness, which logically fits this experience of having lost something that you value. So it starts there. And I'll say that that in and of itself is difficult at times. Many of us are utterly disconnected from our feelings and our values. I don't have time in this video to go about how you could connect more with the feeling. I'm going to assume as we carry on that you genuinely feel the pain of that loss, that you are in a pained, grievous, and suffering state from which you could genuinely say, I'm sorry. Now, that alone is not enough to begin the work of reconciliation. Saying I'm sorry is a declaration of your state. It's a representation of your internal experience, but it doesn't, as of yet, begin the work of reconciliation. We do this work by following up I'm sorry with something like, I'd like to offer you an apology. Now, just take note of how differently those phrases land. How often have you said to someone, I'm sorry? And how rarely have you said to someone, I'd like to offer you an apology? You can see that this one has a little more gravity to it, right? So when you are offering an apology, I'm going to encourage you to think of it as placing an offering on the altar. I'm going to encourage you to look at the work of reconciliation in relationships as a sacred practice. This really is your opportunity to weave together the fabric of something that has been torn. And by God, when you give a genuine apology and it's received, you will feel that you are walking on sacred ground. You will feel within yourself that it is only by the grace of God that this is possible for you. So, let me walk you through how you might begin to offer a genuine apology from this sorry state. An apology, if we look to the roots of this word as well, it comes from the Greek meaning a thorough account of. It means something like a story. Originally, it was used as a defense of one's position, but that was only made possible through a thorough consideration of the other person's position. So I'll suggest to you that when you say, I'm sorry, and you say, I'd like to offer you an apology, the apology is a thorough account, a story of how the relationship got to where it is. And it's you taking into account your actions that contributed to this distance, that contributed to the harm done, and an acknowledgement of the effect your actions had on the other person. So you may, for example, say, I would like to offer you an apology. I have failed to appreciate you. I have failed to consider you. I did X, Y, and Z, and I know that that harmed you in this way. So this takes a tremendous amount of reflection on your part to recognize both what you did and what occurred within the other person as a result of what you did. This takes a willingness to consider both your position and theirs. And in the offering of an apology, you are privileging their experience of things over yours. You are suspending your perspective for a few moments and offering an account of how you imagine your actions have impacted them. Now, when you offer a genuine apology in this way, and you acknowledge your actions and the effects of your actions on the other person, it will change them if you've done it right. They will breathe this sigh of relief. They will recognize within themselves that you deeply understand their position. You are, in offering an apology, attempting to stand under their position and demonstrate your understanding of it. So you say a genuine expression of this sorry state that you're feeling. You say, I'm sorry. You say, I would like to offer you an apology. And you offer the apology, the thorough account of what happened. Now, in doing so, you are threading a needle across the torn fabric of this relationship. That's your first step. Now, the work is not yet done. After you have offered the apology, it's up to you to ask their forgiveness. And you don't ask their forgiveness expecting it. But by God, if they offer you their forgiveness in return, they are threading the needle back across the fabric. So you've offered the apology, and that begins the weaving. They offer you forgiveness in return. That continues the weaving. And what a gift it is to receive someone's forgiveness. This is not something you should take for granted because it is not to be expected. Now, you've begun the weaving. They've continued the weaving. There is another step in doing this. If they've offered you their forgiveness, as I mentioned before, what a gift. Now, common sense says there's something you ought to do when you have received a gift, particularly if it is a gift that you did not expect and that you may not even have deserved. What you do in this case is you give thanks. Now, when you thank them for giving you their forgiveness, you have offered the apology, they have offered you forgiveness, and you are giving thanks. You are weaving this relationship back together. You really do have three key steps involved in beginning the work of reconciliation. Saying, I'm sorry, is not one of these steps. It helps. I mean, it reveals your heart. If you genuinely feel sorry, you can say, I'm sorry, but it's not enough. What asks to be done here is you to offer an apology. Give the thorough, reflective account of your actions and the effects of those actions. Then ask their forgiveness. And if you are lucky enough, if by the grace of God they give you their forgiveness, give thanks in return. Now, you can see that there is a tremendous amount of work involved in this. You have to feel what you feel. You have to reflect upon the relationship. What led it here? What role you played in its current state? And then you have to humble yourself to demonstrate your understanding, standing under their position. And you have to give an offering expecting nothing in return. Oof. You can see why it is so rare that we engage in genuine reconciliation. It takes a tremendous amount of work. And upon hearing all of this, you may decide that these relationships you're involved in, they're not actually worth the work. That, my friend, would be a very difficult position. Understandable, in that maybe you're not up to the task. Maybe you're not yet willing or able to engage in this work. But by God, the relationships that are worth the work, you will transform them when you engage in this practice. When you can connect with your genuine feelings, represent them accurately, offer an apology, ask forgiveness, give thanks in return. Whew, a tremendous amount of work has been done. Now, I'll say the work of reconciliation continues after this. I suggest it's up to you to propose something that you see as a minimum agreement that the two of you could meet. You're looking for a minimum point of consensus for the relationship. The two of you could agree that our next step is this. And if you're not sure what to propose regarding a next step, for the relationship, you can invite their perspective and you can listen to it because maybe they still know something you don't about what's to be done for the reconciliation of this relationship. I'll say that reconciliation means something like, it's so interesting, the clues we get in these words. It means something like to shout together again. And then you can see where if you can weave this relationship back together and find a point of agreement, a minimum point of consensus, what's the least amount that we can wholeheartedly agree to do together now? When you reach that point, it's worth celebrating. I mean, if you can agree on a shared goal and achieve that next step together, it's worth reflecting and looking back and saying, oh my God, look at what we have done together. That is how we can engage in the work of reconciliation. It takes two, obviously. You may find that despite how sorry you feel, and despite offering a thorough apology, you may find that you are not forgiven. You may find that your apology is not accepted, that it needs revision. Ultimately, there may be too much damage done, but I remain optimistic. I have continued faith that when we can give a thorough apology and when we can engage in the good faith work of reconciliation, miracles occur in our relationships. So I hope that this is a blessing for you and yours. I hope you can see how different this is from merely saying, I'm sorry. One is simply a representation of your state, which may or may not accurately represent what's up for you. The other takes a tremendous amount of reflective work. It takes an incredible degree of humility, a willingness to feel your feelings, to share your heart with another person. It involves a great deal of risk, and yet the rewards remain worth it. So, again, I hope this is a blessing for you and yours. If you have any questions, please share them below. If you take it upon yourself to practice this, I would love to hear in the comments how it goes, what becomes of it. That, I'm sure, will be an encouragement for others along the way as well. So, be well, and I will look forward to speaking with you in the next video.